I may have mentioned it a few times before in my other longer streams, but I'm going to make it short and sweet on this one, and I'm going to say what I think the purpose of Freemasonry is, which is, I think, confined only to people who are of the Abrahamic faiths, believing in a creator, a supreme power, and this must mean the Abrahamic God, so you're only allowed to join really if you're Jewish, Christian or Muslim, and if you're Buddhist or Hindu, you're not welcome, you're not allowed to join. And what is the purpose of this? Well, I think it is to eventually get the Christians to see sense, because they would be the odd one out with their Trinitarianism, because Jews and Muslims are agreed on the oneness of God. And I think an occasion will be triggered when Jews and Muslims finally get round to telling Christians how their view would not be considered either kosher or halal by God, and God wouldn't want to be worshipped as the co-equal of a crucified Jew convicted of blasphemy. And I think one day soon, Masons are going to get it together to tell the people with the views that make them the odd one out, and put them on notice that it is idolatry and blasphemy and they should cease and desist. Otherwise, it would have the effect of increasing the wrath of the Creator on humanity as a whole. And why shouldn't they give up their absurd beliefs anyway? Because we don't think they really believe in it. That is the thing. I think they only pretend to believe in it. And in the previous stream, when I was talking to Domingo about why people are pantheists, the instinct to worship remains, even though people like Spinoza didn't quite want to worship the Abrahamic God. So what he did was really to say, look, I still worship God, but I don't have to follow the laws of the Abrahamic God contained in the Torah or the Quran, because he's not that kind of God. He's a different kind of God. He's still a one God, but not the bossy one with all the laws in the scripture. And that's what I think the pantheists have done. They have basically taken God's laws out of the Abrahamic God, and say, look, I can still worship God, in my own free-thinking way, and I don't have to follow his laws. But under secular Quranism, you can do that anyway. You would be free to be a pantheist, provided you don't do anything that is against the laws of secular Quranism. And I think Freemasons have the purpose of being majority Unitarian, and they are, I think, primed to maybe have a discreet word in the ears of Christians, who are the odd one out with their Trinitarian views, to think again about how they have been practicing their faith, or if they have been practicing their faith at all, because it's really not worth being done for blasphemy and idolatry if you don't even believe. So why do people pretend to believe in God? I think it is still the belief that if you say you believe in God, you are morally superior to somebody who says he doesn't believe in God. But obviously inquiries should be made of anybody who claims to believe in God, because we need to find out what kind of God they believe in, whether it is the Abrahamic God, and if it is the Abrahamic God, they can be assumed to have superior morals to atheists, for example, because I think an atheist is more likely to lie and take and not be principled, because that's how they think. It is just the nature of their intellectual and moral makeup. Of course, there can be a few exceptions, and obviously somebody who claims to be Jewish or Christian or Muslim doesn't necessarily mean that they will be following all the rules of Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. You really need to, well, compare. If a person who says they believe in one moral system, in fact, practices his moral system. But what's helpful about religion is that they kind of say, well, this is the kind of person you should expect, that he will be, keeping the Sabbath, or not eating pork, or celebrating Christmas, or whatever it is that his religion says he must do. And then you can see if he actually does do these things or not, and on that basis, judge him as a person on the basis of his professed beliefs. And this is really the practical part of religion, because really, when you think about all the blanks you have to fill in forms, when they ask you where you're from, where you were born, how old you are, where, your marital status, and of course you only fill in these forms in order to get somewhere, to get something. It's an application form, applying for a position in a place of employment, and really what they want to know from you is, what they're doing is asking you for information whereby they can use, which they can use to predict your behavior. So if you say you're a certain age, and whether you're married or not, if you're not married, they might expect you to get married, and that might affect your employment, and you might be asking for a rise if you're a man supporting your family, and they might choose to have a bachelor or a gay person, which is kind of what the Church of England does these days. They seem to prefer same-sex couples because they're cheaper than heterosexual married couples with children. So it's all been done on the cheap, basically. And obviously there is a reason to not do things in this way, because what you want to do is really encourage people to get married and to stay together for the sake of the children, in order to bring up the next generation. And these are behaviors that are only supported by organized religion, and some disorganized ones, I guess, if you're going to call Hinduism and Buddhism not organized religions. So the purpose of Freemasonry is really to kind of, I'm only guessing, to get rid of the idolatry and blasphemy that's been forbidden in the Ten Commandments, and because I suppose it was very difficult for Jews and Muslims to deal with Christians who were so powerful and so warlike, and had taken over the world, and obviously these Jews and Muslims were afraid to challenge these Christians who might get very nasty very quickly indeed. So I think Freemasonry is a way of one day arranging it so that Christians can be tapped on the shoulder and confronted about their idolatry and blasphemy by Jewish and Muslim Masons, and asked perhaps to change their ways. So that is, I think, the reason for Freemasonry. Thank you for listening.